Alister, I want to know whether God exists, and I pursue a kind of thinking which is probably more analytic or scientific based on my background. And some friends and some people who are not friends but who want to help me tell me that I'm really proceeding along the wrong path, and I'll never find answers with a rational approach, that I must have faith, and without faith, I will go nowhere. I can understand the self-consistency of that very well, but to try to have faith, and this is my problem, scares me, because it's like putting myself in an emotional framework to reject rationality and to accept something which I know cannot be justified on rational means. And because I want to believe, I do want to believe, I worry about fooling myself.
Well, I think that's a very fair question. But the point I'd like to make in beginning to explore this with you is that you already believe lots of things. Things you can't prove, but you believe to be right. There may be moral views, maybe political views, but the nature of life is simply such that there are many things on which we base our lives that we just can't prove to be true.
Sure.
So there is this sense in which actually we don't really live in a world where we can absolutely prove everything that undergirds our life and our thought. So I think we can relax a little bit. Actually, we realize that life is about faith very often, trusting this is right, but not being able to prove it. It doesn't mean running away from reason. It just means not allowing ourselves to be imprisoned by reason, which actually very often is quite limited.
Look, I can accept that completely, but my approach to politics or international affairs or economics, I don't think I can prove any of that, but I do have strong beliefs and opinions, and I'm not worried any of those will fool me, because I know the substance of that. But when I look to anything in the supernatural, particularly if it would be a God, I think that's a different character, because I'm not trying to prove it, and I know that proof doesn't exist in all facets of my life. But the faith I'm required to have for God is of a different character than the uncertainty of my politics or my view of economics.
Well, let's take this further. I think that the first point I'd like to make is that faith is a cognitive thing. It's more than that. It's about trust. It's existential. But to begin with, it's cognitive. It's saying, look, I think this way of looking at things makes most sense. Okay. And we can talk about this in some detail, but the point basically is, here's the evidence. Here's what I observe in the world around me, in my own personal experience. What's the best way of making sense of this? And my own view, which would take a long time to explain, is that I think a God such as the Christian God actually makes a lot of sense of things. But you're right, there's more to it than that. It's not just saying, I think this is right. It's much more, this is something I trust. And in many ways, I think that's a core element of faith. Not simply, I think it's right, but this is a rock on which I can stand. This is something that gives dignity, stability, purpose, and meaning to life. And that really does lie beyond proof. But that is why it matters to people. It doesn't matter to me. I might believe Queen Victoria died in 1900. I'd be wrong. She died in 1901. But it makes no difference to anyone. But if I say, I believe there is meaning to life, or I believe there is a God, actually, that moves us into different territory altogether.
And that's why I'd be even more scared, because of the significance of that. And so I worry very much that I would be fooling myself into believing something I want to believe about something so important, because if I'm going to have trust in it, that's an extra step from belief. Because belief to have, I need a first step of faith, but then if I'm going to trust in it and make decisions of life or relationships or something based on that belief, then that's another leap of faith that I must take.
And you've probably taken such leaps of faith already, because as you rightly say, whatever you believe has consequences. And that's a frightening thought. Yeah. But actually, even if I say, oh, well, I'm not going to think about this, there's no point in thinking about this, that has consequences for life as well. So I very much respect what you're saying. But I think what I would want to say in response is that these are indeed big questions, and they're frightening questions, but that's all the more reason to think about them. And it brings home to us, for me, what is the most fundamental point, which is that because they are such big questions, actually they may transcend the human ability to reach answers to them. And that's why I think we need help with some of these. What if there were a God who doesn't just exist, but gives us a helping hand along the way to discovering him? That would change the game completely. And that's why one of the most distinctive themes of Christian faith is that faith is about trusting this God, trusting this God's promises, holding his hand, I speak loosely here, in that he will lead us through life. For me, Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, gives us quite a nice metaphor for faith. It's about being accompanied as we journey. And that seems to me to hold together the idea of uncertainty about the future. We don't really know quite where we're going, but nevertheless believing that whatever life throws at us, we can hold on to this God who's going to be with us as we journey through this transient world.
Do you agree that I need two leaps of faith to get to where you would have me be? The first being a leap to belief, and the second being a leap to trust?
I think that's a good point, and I think I would agree. Although I would say that perhaps these are two humps on the same leap, if I can put it like that. But I think that there are many who would say, well, there probably is a God, but it makes no difference. And I think it's really moving from this might be the case to realizing if it is the case, it changes the whole game.